the same time to port H, which is an input port, you have to just use one of them. So if you want to use it for a different application, don't use the keyboard and things like that. And there are some hints already in the lab experiments as to what to do in these situations. Port E occupies pins, 8 pins, PE0 through PE7. There is something special about port E, and that is PE0 and PE1, the lowest 2 bits of the data register of port E are permanently configured as an input. These are permanently configured as inputs. And well, the reason will be obvious close to the end of the course, because they are used for the interrupt. PE0 and PE1 are used for the interrupt. See, there are 2 external pins on the chip that are relevant to interrupt. And these are directly connected to PE0 and PE1. So these are going to be used for interrupt purposes. So they are always inputs. PE0 and PE1 are always inputs. So we cannot use port E, for example, as an output port for all the 8 bits. You cannot use port E as an output port for all 8 bits. You can do that for port A, you can do that for port B, but for port E, you cannot say all the bits are output, because we already have 2 bits dedicated or set aside to be inputs, and these are set aside for the interrupt function.
Which is PE0 and PE1?
Yes.
Okay.
PE0 and PE1, yeah. We have other ports. Could you a little bit raise your voice? I'm having some, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Ports H and T can be used for simple I/O programming, similar situations. You see, there are some other ports like the ADC ports. They can be used for I/O operations. If not used by the A to D converter, they can be used for I/O operations.
Okay.
Now it says here a powerful feature of the before we go to that powerful feature, let me stop this one here, and probably I'd like to show you some material. I think now you see the supplementary material of port 4 of chapter 4.
Yes.
Here are just examples. What you see here is the first example on the top. We have a D to A converter, for example. Here is a microcontroller at the left. Here is an I/O port. So it is an output port in this case. The I/O port should be configured as an output port in this situation because we have a D to A converter. This is the analog world here at the output. So you need to hook it to an output port. So the data will come out from where? From the accumulator. Most of the time, it comes out from the accumulator, go to the output port, whatever it is, and then it's gonna find its way to the output. So this is gonna be the digital lines here. You're gonna see lines. It's some kind of software to hardware conversion. Let's put it this way, because the data is already stored inside the machine in software. You wanna convert this to hardware. You wanna see, you're dealing with real life now. You're going from inside the machine to outside the machine. Inside the machine, everything is interpreted as logic 1 or logic 0. Outside the machine is gonna be voltage, actual voltage. Inside the machine, you're gonna see ones and zeros written somewhere. But if you go outside the machine, you're gonna see real voltages to connect to your input, to your output. That's a D to A converter. The opposite is true for an A to D converter. You're gonna grab the data from the A to D converter. You have an input, then you're grabbing the data from the A to D converter. You have to read it by an input port. When you read it by an input port, of course, you have to configure this port. You have to select a port. You have to tell it you are an input. Yeah, that's really what happens. You have to select a port. You have to tell this port you are an input. And you have to decide.
Professor.
I'm sorry?
Sorry, I was gonna ask, so is the microchip, the MC and the IO port always bidirectional, or can it be like one directional only?
No. It's there is nothing. Yeah, well, it depends on what you define.
Right.
If the ports, all the ports are bidirectional except the ones I mentioned. By the exception, for example, is lines 0, 1 of port E. These can be only inputs. There are some other ports like A to D convert, like AD port. It doesn't have a data direction register. There are a few exceptions here and there.
Okay.
But most of the time, these ports are bidirectional.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. So this is the A to D converter case. There you can